Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
How's it going?
Yeah. Can you see us? Can you hear us? How big is the delay? Yes. Hi. Hey, everyone. Hi,
Yeah,
Jose.
hey.
Hi, Flavio.
Hi, Jose. Hi, Flavio.
Friends. Okay. We'll start briefly, right? Shortly. We just wanted to confirm with you that English is fine. It is on the it was part of the information that we were doing this in English, but if necessary, you can ask for clarification in Portuguese, because a gente fala português. Hello! Priscila,
Hello, Dani.
será que é a Priscila que eu conheço? Ok? So, se vocês tiverem dificuldade com o inglês, avisem. Não, eu passei esse recado em inglês, mas se você tem dificuldade com o inglês, você não vai entender o recado. Nós propusemos que o workshop fosse feito em inglês, mas podemos fazer explicações, assim, se for necessário. É que é uma boa oportunidade, né, para trabalhar a língua, tanto para vocês quanto para a gente. So we can... Maria Cristina falou que tem dificuldade com o inglês? Tudo bem, a gente faz bem devagarinho. A não ser que você tenha falado que você tem outra coisa. Oh, thank you, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess it's okay.
Yeah. I think we can start just introducing what we're going to do today. Okay. Let me show you the slides here. I hope they're good to read. They're fine. I have a little laser pointer here. Okay. So basically, what we're doing today is explaining to you what an outline is, right? This was the theme of this workshop. We're going to talk about the functions of an outline and give some examples. And then we're going to give you the chance to practice, right? To practice writing an outline. And at the end, we will discuss the experience. In case I assume you may not know what an outline is or exactly how to do it in the way that we are going to explain. Okay? So just to start, we have a question for you, right? Which is, have you ever written a fichamento, right? I assume you are university students, and fichamento is a part of academic life. So, have you ever written a fichamento? And what was it like, right? So we'll give you some time to answer the question. And
Priscilla says yes.
yes,
She has written a fichamento.
it's very common in undergraduation, right? Na graduação. Hello, people. Hello, Giovanna. Afternoon. Gabriela. Ariana, yes. Okay.
Just in Portuguese, Ademar
Just in
says.
Portuguese. Okay, yes. If we say fichamento, okay, Elaine knows, but she never did one. Okay, that makes sense. Às vezes você sabe o que é, nunca viu, nem comeu, só ouve falar.
And Monica says that she likes fichamento because it helps her to study.
Yes.
That's cool. It really helps.
Yeah. We call it a tool for academic success because of that, right? It really helps you study. It can help you learn. It can help you remember what you read. Priscilla says, I only do it if it's mandatory because I don't know how to do it in a way that helps me study. Let's hope we can do it. We can help with that today. Yes. Let's hope we can give you some options that will give you a better way of using, right? An outline, or if you want to call it fichamento, right? Jessica
says that I believe that it is a tool to organize and structure the information to better understand a text. I never did one. Okay, now you will.
Yes. Jose said, yes, writing one is always a nightmare, but very useful. I like it. I actually am a fan of the outline or fichamento. But I think, oh, okay. Jessica said, actually, I may have done it, but I didn't know what I was doing was fichamento or outline. Interesting.
We'll demystify that for you. It's not a nightmare.
Yeah,
it's
hopefully.
Very, very useful.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answers. Let's move on. Let's see what it actually is.
Yes. Let's talk about it. So we have basically two types of fichamento. And I'm going to say this in Portuguese because we usually use this genre in Portuguese, right? But we have citação, fichamento de citação, and fichamento bibliográfico. Fichamento de citação usually has quotations from the text that you're using. So direct quotations, as we can see from the example here in the picture. And fichamento bibliográfico is another type of quotation or citation that you write, you quote from the text using your own words. So it's a little bit different, understand? Fichamento de citação, you use direct citations. And fichamento bibliográfico, you use parts of the text that you think are important, and you put the pages in the end. Look at the picture. Look at the examples that we put here. See the difference?
I hope they're readable because you're on YouTube.
Yeah. Take a look. If it's too small, we can try to... You can put it on full screen, maybe, to help you. So basically, fichamento is a useful way for professors to make you read. So professors at your universities ask you to do this to make you read better. And you can keep the fichamento to yourself to review what you studied after. Oh, it's readable. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, yes. So, I don't know about you, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience. You're fine. I think I would like to know if you have the time to type it in the chat where you're from, if you're currently studying something, because I graduated from USP in Letras, right? And my experience was that I had to do fichamento sometimes, right? Some professors asked me to hand out, not to hand out, to hand in a fichamento of a text. And it was often very confusing because I didn't know which type of fichamento they wanted, if they just wanted direct citations or if they wanted bullet points. And usually, if you're studying, right, getting a degree, I would suggest asking asking your professor what exactly they mean by fichamento. It helps, okay, because you can never be sure in Portuguese. Even in English, you have a couple of differences in outlines. So my suggestion is ask your professor, your lecturer, what they want specifically. Okay, so we have a lot of colleagues.
Yeah, we do. A lot of people from Letras USP are here.
Yeah. Okay, Carl is here to learn to do these texts, right? Good. I hope what we have today will help you. So yeah, because usually for you to do an outline or fichamento, you have to read the text. This is a way professors force you to read the text. So it's a very useful teaching tool. If you are a teacher, you can use this to make your students read. Okay, but you can see that topics are a common point here, right? And these are from the same text, just in case you weren't reading carefully. They're the same text, A Questão da Cultura Popular, but written differently, right? Oh, okay, so we have people from Unip. Unip Vergueiro is very near my house. And PhD students, very nice, very nice. Let's move on because even though we are starting from fichamento because it may be more familiar to you, the outline is a more specific thing, right? So,
yeah. Let's talk about the outline, which is another genre that is similar to fichamento, but you will see there are some differences. So let's focus on the outline. So you may be expected to produce this genre outline for a class. The people here from Letras USP probably, right? Because we usually do a lot of outlines, but you from other universities and other courses, you can benefit from the outlines as well. And you can use outlines as a form of active reading. What is active reading? Basically, it's a strategy that goes beyond just reading. So sometimes you really like a text. Maybe it's a difficult text, maybe a little complex, but if you don't have a strategy to retain that information, you have to go back to that text over and over again, right? When you are writing a paper or studying for an exam. So an outline is a way for you to not have to go back to that text or avoid it as much as possible because you have the primary information from that text written for you in your own notes, right? So the outline can help you to remember and analyze the texts. This image that we have here shows an example of a high school outline that a person did about the United States presidents. So you see the title is US Presidents, and here we have the presidents that were the presidents of the United States. George Washington, the first president, and Andrew Jackson, the seventh president. And what is there to say about the presidents? So the person divided this into the good things about the George Washington administration and the bad things. And then Andrew Jackson, they did the same thing, the good and the bad about his administration. And here we have bullet points in this case, right? One bullet point is for George Washington. So this topic is about George Washington. And the subtopic is the good things about George Washington. So we have established the tradition of a cabinet of advisors, issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation, and promoted religious tolerance. So this helps you, right? Because you look at this and you think, oh my God, what did George Washington do in his administration? So he did this as good actions, and he did these other actions that were not so good. So this helps you to remember exactly the information from the text. You see, the sentences are complete. It makes you remember what you read.
Yes. I wanted to say that this is from the internet, right? So we don't personally agree that these things are good things that George Washington did.
Yeah, this is
or bad
besides the
things.
point. It's not that
Yeah.
we agree with these things. It's what is written in this person's outline.
Yeah. So you can see if you want to write, or if this person wanted to write about the US presidents and they wanted to say something good about George Washington, they would know exactly where to look. They would go here and not here or here. So it can be very easy to find information if you're using an outline. I wanted to comment on Flavio's comment.
Yeah.
Because he said, this is interesting because I produced some fichamentos during my undergraduate studies, and I've produced them for my graduate studies too, but in different occasions, different things were expected. And that is true. And then he says, in the end, I started doing fichamentos in a way that works best for me. So yes, if a professor asks you, oh, I want this fichamento de citação, maybe this isn't the best way for you to work on a text, but it is what you have to do at that moment. And then once you are, usually if you're doing some type of research, right, either for a discipline or for undergraduate research, IC, or graduate studies, mestrado, pós, then you have to learn how to remember many texts, right? That's why active reading works. There are many forms of active reading, more basic ones like highlighting. I don't know about you if you like to highlight texts, use different colors. What I like about fichamentos, outlines, is that you are already writing about your reading. And usually in academia, right, what we have to do is write about what we read. So this is already a good starting point. But I agree that it takes a while to find the best way for you to remember, right? I had to do some experiments. Okay, let's move on. We highlighted here that some texts are seminal. They are very important texts of a field. So let's say if you are from letras, there may be, Poética from Aristotle, or Júlio Cortázar about the short story, o conto. I remember these texts as very important texts on the field of literature. So these really important texts are the ones that I personally recommend that you outline. I don't believe you should feel the need to outline every text you read in your academic career, because outlining takes extra time, right? So the text has to deserve your work. Jessica asked, do you know if handwriting has the same effect? Yes, I believe so. Yes, don't you, Marina?
Does she mean doing, does she mean outlining handwriting in handwriting?
Yes, I think writing an outline on paper.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I believe so. I believe it's equally helpful as long as you maintain the line, right? So you have 1, 1.1, 1.2, for example. If you are creating this space physically on the page, it should work. The only thing that it may not help is you cannot copy from the page.
Yeah. We'll see some organizational features of outlines.
Yeah. Giovanna asked if the slides are going to be available. I'm not sure, Giovanna. I wouldn't bet on it personally. So you can screenshot it. I'll try to look pretty. So yes, let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, you guys should think of the outline as the skeleton of a text. If you are outlining in order to retain a text for future writing, for example, you have a final paper for a class or you're writing a research project and you need the outline to help you write, you need to be clear in this outline to understand exactly what you wrote without having to go back to the original text. So this is why we're talking so much about a thorough outline and why is it important? Because it avoids the fact that you need to go back to that text, especially if it's like like Julia said, like those seminal texts that are super important and that you need to use them a lot during a course or for a paper. And this avoids you having to go back to those texts, right? So in an outline, we organize the content from general to specific topics. So we start with a general topic and then we branch into specific topics.
Yes. I wanted to mention that sometimes you think you're doing an incredible outline, and then after 3 months, you read it and you don't remember anything, and then you understand that you have to change your strategy. That's why I believe it can take some tinkering, some adjusting to find the best way of writing outlines. I'm going to show an example of an outline soon that I wrote, and it's from 2017, I think. And today it would be very, very different. So let's keep going.
Yeah. So as we were saying, the outline organizes the text in the form of topics. You know this already. But we have the main topics, which are the headings, and the subtopics, which are the subheadings. The subordination between the topics are more general and the subtopics are more specific, along with parallel syntax, are some of the main features of the outlines. We will talk more about these structures with particular examples for you guys. Okay, but the good thing about the outline is that the hierarchy of these topics sets it apart from what we usually know as fichamento, because you saw the examples before that we gave from fichamento. They are not exactly like the outlines. The outline is more organized. It forces us to think about the relationship between the ideas in the text. So what is causing this to happen? What is a, I don't know, cause or consequence relationship or relation in this context? This is important to know in a text or to remember. So when you go back to it, it's easier to read, it's easier to find information that you need.
Yes, let's see if I can show you. Let's go back to the slides just to compare. So usually fichamentos we do as a line, right? So topics of the same level. This is one topic, this is the same. You don't see any relationship between the topics. If you're using citations, direct citations, or paraphrasing, it's still the same. And then you go to the outline and you have this hierarchy, right? So you know, for example, if you're looking for information about Andrew Jackson, that you don't have to read the information about George Washington. You can come here. And then if you want to know what you consider to be good about Andrew Jackson, you can read this, and you don't have to read the bad part necessarily, right? So that's the convenience of outlining.
Yes, exactly. We have more information, I think.
Yes.
So outlines can be written in the form of topics, which are sentence fragments, or complete sentences. We'll see examples of that. The advantage of using sentence fragments, which are bigger sentences in an outline, is visualizing your text in a quick and logical order. So it's quick, it's logical, it's nice. But the advantage of using complete sentences is the possibility of making the content clearer in the future. Now, this is important if you think this is a paramount text for you and you need to go back to this text in the second year of your undergraduate course or in the third year. This is a text that revolves around your undergraduate course. So you need to do another type, perhaps, of outlining. Your outline needs to be more complete. The point is, when you finish the outline, you have to ask yourself, if I go back to this in like 1 month or 3 months, could I remember this information in detail if I need to use this, if I need to write about this? So this is something important. So because the outline is so organized, it can help you identify inconsistencies in your text. Or if you have understood the organization, the logic of thinking, you can compare your outline to the original text and see, oh, maybe I misunderstood this or that relation, or maybe this is not the cause of this, something like that. We'll see examples to make it clearer for you, because I know these kinds of things usually go better with examples, and we have lots of them for you.
Yeah, we have a couple, right? What I wanted to highlight, I wanted you to do as a thought experiment, just for you to keep that in mind, is think about which texts you would consider important enough to outline, right? Because you're not necessarily all from the same field. We are all not necessarily doing the same, taking the same classes. So maybe you are doing research at a graduate level. What text do the first text that comes to your mind that you think, I need to remember this text for as long as I study, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, this is the text I have to know. Or if you're taking a class, right? Which text I need to know in order to write my paper, which text I think may be helpful for future classes. As I said, I remember some from my undergraduate career, but I'm sure you can think of others. We are going to show a text about genre, which is gênero textual. And whenever we talk about genre, if you are from letras, you probably mention Bakhtin. So Bakhtin may be something that you read and outline. Okay, let's move on. I think we have a couple of details to explain a little bit more, and then we'll show some examples.
Yeah. So in summary, to do a fine outline, to do a proper outline, you should avoid copying or directly citing words and sentences. So you see how it's different from fichamento already. It's quite different, because in an outline, we don't do that, not usually, right? So you can make sure that you're working on your paraphrasing skills during an outline. So if you feel the need to cite directly, because the way the information is written in the text is essential for your understanding, you can. It's not prohibited. You can do that. But don't forget to use quotation marks and include the page. This is super important to avoid plagiarism issues.
Yes. You have to imagine when you're writing that you will read this in the future after you've forgotten the text, perhaps, right? So if you copy a full sentence, right? If you uh, directly cite and don't put quotation marks, you may not remember that it's a direct citation. And then you will be plagiarizing by accident. Yes, you will be plagiarizing. So you have to be very careful with how you're writing your outline. I suggest using citations if you know that you want to cite directly in your writing. So you remember, you think about the text and you read a section and you think this is something I am going to put in your in my text. I am going to cite this directly, and then you can cite it. But yes, you should definitely use outlines, or I recommend it, to practice paraphrasing, because then you are working more than one skill at once. Paraphrasing is writing the same information in a different form, right? So you're using a different structure, you're using different words, and this is very, very common and very useful in academia, right? We usually have to explain what other people wrote about the same subject. So in the academic world, the English-speaking academic world, paraphrasing is far more common than direct citation, right? Because if you cite directly too much, it can seem like you don't know how to write and you don't know how to paraphrase. Okay? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. And then practicing paraphrasing is something that you can do through the outline. And then by the time you have to write your paper, you already have the paraphrased parts of the text, and you can use them in your own writing. So it can be useful in that way, outlining, because you will see outlining takes time. It sometimes for me, I think it can double the time of reading. So if I would read a text in an hour, I will outline it and read it in 2 hours. So I want it to be very, very useful. And not only to remember the text, but also to use it, to write about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tanya said she's having issues. I wanted to confirm, is
She's
she the
not
only one?
getting audio.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Priscilla says it's normal.
Okay. So we will move on. In any case, this will be recorded, so you will have access to it in the future. So you don't have to worry about missing a piece. For example, I wanted to let's see what Ariana wrote. For example, if there are official documents, I usually do a direct citation. But in other situations, I include my opinion on the text. Okay, you don't have to apologize for your English. I think it's
This
perfectly
is quite
understandable.
interesting. This is very interesting what she said, because when you include your opinion, and this is something that we constantly discuss as graduate students ourselves, we should always attain to the text information, because a text information is something that we have to put in our outline. So what does this text talk about? This, and that. But what's my opinion of what the text talks about? Now, this needs to be in a separate part. Of course, maybe in the same document or in the same paper, but in a different color or in a different place, so that you can see that that sentence is your opinion about the author's text, or about the text. So this should be clear, because otherwise you can get confused when you are using your outline in the future. So be careful with that. Try to, a simple tip is just to try to separate your personal opinion to the outline or the fichamento.
Yes, I agree. I just wanted to comment that in my personal experience, often if you are doing fichamento, professors ask you not to put your opinion, right? So if you do it, you can do it as a comment on the document, as a little box, right? If you're doing it on paper. I like to do it in a different color on the same text. And I think it's good to do. I think it's something I find very useful to transform the outline in my own writing, because as you advance in your academic career, you are expected to be critical, right? So if you read something, you're going to analyze it. You're going to think about how it relates to other texts, to theories, to your own knowledge. So you can add comments about that, and I think that can be very helpful to give you a nice, more, not necessarily more personal, but something that gives you authorship, right? Uma autoria, very good in very good in general, right? To be critical, but very important as you advance the academic career. But we'll show some examples of how to do that.
Yeah. So let's start with the first example, because one of the outlines features is parallelism. And what is that? Basically, we use parallel structures in all the main headings or the main topics. For example, this is a fictitious outline. So the first topic is write a paper. The second topic is send the paper for peer checking. Do you understand peer checking? It's like when you write your paper, after you write, you send it to a colleague to check the information or the facts or the bibliography. It's important in the academia. So these are two steps to hand in an academic paper. First, you have to write the paper, and then you have to send the paper for peer checking. You see how I used the same structure. Write and send are both verbs. So this is parallelism. If you use the main topics with the same expressions or the same verbs, it's going to help you to organize information. So first, write a paper, then send the paper for peer checking, then wait for grading, send it to editors. So see, always use the same structure.
Yes, sometimes the structure is given. We'll show examples. But let's move on to the coordination.
Yeah. Another feature of the outline is coordination between headings and subheadings. So all headings have the same level of importance. This is coordination, basically. So we have, again, the same example from before. Write a paper and send the paper for peer checking. So in order to hand in an assignment, these two steps are equally important. Write a paper and send the paper for peer checking. So the topics in 1.1, review bibliography, and 1.2, outline linguistics papers, are a description of one. So what do I need to do to write a paper? First, I need to review bibliography, and second, I need to outline linguistics papers. But you can see that numbers 1 and 2, write a paper and send the paper for peer checking, are equally important. And 1.1 and 1.2 refer exclusively to write a paper, right? So reviewing bibliography and outlining linguistics papers, this is only about writing a paper. When I send the paper for peer checking, this is done. You know, so it's a way to see coordination in an outline. See how it's more organized. It's more organized than the regular fichamento.
Yes. Okay, now let's see an example. So this is an outline. Actually, I have adapted it. The text is Anne Raines is Out of the Woods. Okay, so this is a piece of the text. It's okay if you cannot read it. I'll read it out loud. But this is a text about writing instruction between 1966 and 1991. So this is a text from 1991. And I had to read it in 2017. And I outlined it. I will show you my full outline after we read this part, because I just want to explain first how I did it, or how I would have done it if I had read it today. So first, we have this section here. This is a section given by the author, right? Once upon a time, writing instruction and research. Okay. Oh, okay. Before, oh my God, apologies for my dog. Just to confirm, Giovanna said an outline can be in the format of the Cornell note system. I suppose, Giovanna, if you are doing Cornell, that the outline can be the left side, but it may be complex. I think you can use Cornell and then maybe adapt it, right? You can use, the Cornell space to write the outline, the main space, and then on the bottom you write a summary, resuminho. For people who don't know Cornell, it's an interesting method of taking notes, anotar, and it's something I definitely recommend, especially for lectures, right? Aulas, when you're listening and you can write things down. So you can definitely test it, Giovanna, if it works for you during Cornell. So let me get back here to Out of the Woods. There was an introduction before this, okay? But I took this main topic here, and this part here, I didn't believe that it had any information that I wanted to summarize. It was just mentioning that this, oh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. It's okay.
God bless you.
Thank you. That it's going to be discussing the last 25 years of writing instruction. When they say last 25 years, it's from 1991. So this is an old text. It may be older than a lot of you. But then she goes on to divide the text into subheadings, right? So from the text, I already have the main heading here, which is number 1, and subheadings, focus on form, which is what I copied. And then we have the text, right, in paragraphs. So let me just read quickly to explain how I outlined it. She says, once upon a time, when TESOL organization first was founded in 1966, the audiolingual method was the dominant mode of instruction. So what I thought was most important from this is that this is talking about the audiolingual method. And if you work with language teaching, you know what it is. It's something I knew when I outlined it first. I still remember. But then she gives some details. I want to remind you that this is focusing on writing. So it's going to comment on how writing instruction fits these different methods. So she says, the view that speech was primary meant that writing served a subservient role to reinforce oral patterns of language. So I said speaking over writing. It's a very simple way of paraphrasing what she wrote. So in language structure, writing took the form of sentence drills, fill-ins, substitutions, transformations, and completions. If you study English, or if you teach English, you know these fill in the gap exercises, right? So, fill the sentences with present tense, with past tense. These are the drills. Because I work in language teaching, I know what drills is. I don't have to explain it any further. I don't think I'm going to forget, because I remember what drills are. I have been remembering for years. And then she moves on. The content was supplied. The content here, she's talking about the text, right? And here I said content chosen by professor. I'm using my own abbreviations. This is for me, right? So if it were for a class or my advisor, I may not use certain abbreviations. Let's move on here. The writing reinforced or tested the accurate application of grammatical rules. So it's going to focus on grammar. It focuses on form, as far as I'm concerned. This is clear. In the 1970s, the use of sentence combining, while still focusing on the manipulation of given sentences, and thus, according to Zamel, 1980, ignoring the enormous complexity of writing, provided students with the opportunity to explore available syntactic options. So this is something she's going to call soon controlled composition. Controlled composition is when you give people a text that has grammar mistakes, let's say, and you tell them to fix it. So I'm just doing this. When I did this, I actually I wasn't sure if I was going to put this section here with the audiolingual method or here with focus on form. Because as far as I'm concerned, focus on form and audiolingual method are very, very similar. Audiolingual is focus on form, but would this still be considered part of the audiolingual method? That's something I still haven't decided on, but I arbitrarily chose to separate it just to keep it from going too far to the left. I thought it was going to look a little bit better. And then you'll see here the last paragraph. It starts with, it was not only grammatical form that was emphasized in the 1960s and early 1970s. Concern for rhetorical form was the impetus, and then it moves on. So this is the next section, grammar and rhetoric. I don't want to explain the text too long, but I hope that this example here helped you understand.
Yeah, if you look at the organizational features, you can see that, so you have the focus on form. And what do you have inside focus on form? So she divided focus on form into three main things. One of them is audiolingual method. The other one is controlled composition. And the other one is grammar and rhetoric. So this means that for her, in Julia's opinion, these three aspects refer to focus on form. How do you as a teacher focus on the form? With audiolingual method, controlled composition, and grammar and rhetoric. So this is interesting to see how she thinks in this case.
Marco asked,
Marco has a question. Yeah.
Do you always divide it according to paragraphs like that? Not necessarily. Sometimes I will ignore the paragraphs completely, but usually if the text is well organized, you may want to follow the paragraph organization, because in theory, when people write paragraphs, they're focusing on certain parts of the subject, right? So I can see that there's some purpose to this paragraphing, and I agree with it. I may not agree. Sometimes people write very small paragraphs, and then in that case, I may not agree with the division. So it does take a little bit of critically analyzing the text to see if you agree with this person organization of ideas. There is something I remember that I wanted to mention, is that sometimes when you're reading, people will repeat information, and you may ask, do I have to write it again? My recommendation is that you do. So if information keeps repeating, you may want to repeat it again and again. Hopefully there is a reason the author is repeating information. So when you're outlining, that's why I have said more than once that you should choose a text that deserves to be outlined. I have outlined texts that I don't consider to be good, and it's more difficult, right? Sometimes texts are very good, very competent, but they are not logically structured. You know, maybe philosophy, maybe certain literature texts. In that case, it may be a little bit more difficult for you to deduce, for you to understand the relationship between parts, right? So if you're reading an essay, ensayo, and it has no sections, you have to create your own sections. Hope that kind of solved your question. Do I always divide it? No. In this case, I did. You may want to try if the text is good. Okay. Yes. So we already have the activity. What I wanted to show you is the real thing of the outline that I did. I'm going to need help from our tech assistant, Gabi, because I'm going to share a different screen. Not this one, Gabi, the other one. I'll share it now. Apologies. Let me share my full screen, and you can see it. Yes, thank you. So this is what I did in 2017. You can see I was very worried about being thorough. So this was the first section, Once Upon a Time, and it's an introduction. So it talked about non-native writing instruction and research between the years of 1966 and 1991. And then she goes to focus on form. And you have the audiolingual method, which I detailed a lot on the slide. But back in 2017, I thought, well, I know what the audiolingual method is. I don't have to explain it to myself. Personally, I prefer the way I did it on the slide. If I wanted to cite Anne Rames and talk about writing, I don't know how much detail I would want to use. And this doesn't give me a lot of detail. So the more thorough you are in your outline, the more options you have when you're using the outline to write. This would still give me something. You know, if I wanted to give a very quick overview on the history of writing, on teaching of writing, I think this would still suffice. But I also think it could be better. I wanted to show you that I have made some comments here, right? So the name of the text is Out of the Woods, and she talks about going into the woods, out of the woods. She talks about fairy tales. Oh my God, my WhatsApp. So I wanted to bring attention to that because she does talk about once upon a time, all of these fairy tale terms. And I thought that was very nice. This is something I would perhaps consider when I was writing. You know, I may want to use a metaphor and keep using that metaphor throughout a text, right? This is just to show that the sections are from the article. They make it easier to outline. And this is something I hadn't commented before, But you can see it has a start date, but not an end date. And she does explain in the text that there is no end date because the theories are still used. Okay? Let me show you some of the thoughts of past Julia. This part's interesting. I don't know why I commented that. I remember liking it. So perhaps, present me would go straight to this part to reread it to see if there's something I may want to use. And then there is something about contrastive rhetoric. And I was asking myself, is this what we do at the university? Something I wanted to perhaps ask my advisor because I was doing undergraduate research. This was for my EC. You can see here, I also used a direct citation because I didn't know how to say consciousness raising device without using these words, consciousness raising device.
This happens more often than not. This happens a lot, actually. We should try to avoid it, but it happens. There is a moment in the text where you feel like you're outlining, you feel like your brain has reached exhaustion and you can't think of any other way to put that sentence there unless if you do a direct citation. And that's okay. Sometimes it happens. But what I think was interesting back there that you showed was the fact that where you said this part is interesting. Maybe nowadays you would describe why exactly is this part interesting. Of course, you would have to go back to the text to see it. And then you would, if this is your notes, you would just put, why do you think this is interesting? So you would always remember that.
Yes, absolutely. You may want to imagine that you are writing to a friend, someone who will not have access to this text, and someone who is as interested in the same things that you are, Let me just close my social media here so you don't have to see it. So yes, I would definitely say why I think it's interesting. And then perhaps if I found the answer, I would go to this document and edit, right? So is this something we do at USP? Yes, I would give the answer. At the end, I give some cute comments. So I liked it. I think it's nice to give impressions, subjective impressions. Then I said, acho que complementa bem o do Susser. I wish I had given a better reference because I couldn't find this text recently. Que foca no passado, right? So this is a text about the history of writing. And then I think, it complements this other text about the history of teaching writing. Which text? I don't know, because I didn't give a good enough reference. Esse apresenta bem questões contemporâneas de 91, right? So it's not how contemporary it is questionable. But I said, acho que serve para ficar retornando se não souber no que pensar. This was at a point when I didn't know exactly what I wanted to research. I knew I wanted to research writing, but I didn't know exactly what. So this was a really good text to start thinking about it because it's giving this overview of writing. Nowadays, I would probably put a lot more comments, criticize what she does, why she does it. We have the references in the bibliography, so you can look for the text if it interests you. But there are other scholars on writing and on teaching who have commented on it. Kanagaraja, who's a very famous scholar, has an article that's called Notes on Out of the Woods by Anne Rames. Okay. I think we have enough now to explain the activity. And let's see how we can do this, because I did choose a text. Let me show you. I chose this text. Let me see if I can just exit out. and share again so it looks a little bit better. I chose a text. It's about writing because this is what we study in the lab. And that's what I have studied for a long time. And it's a very famous text by an author called Ken Highland. And it's called Genre-Based Pedagogies. Genre Pedagogy, sorry. He has a different text. It's called Genre-Based Pedagogies. Genre Pedagogy, Language Literacy, and L2 Writing Instruction. This is something that you have access to online if you are university students from USP, right? So Gabi shared the link. You should be able to access it with the VPN if you're from USP, or I assume most universities. And I think it would be nice if you could do an outline of this text. But if for some reason you cannot access this text, you can do the same activity about a different text that you consider to be very important for your studies. So we'll give you 30 minutes. That's a lot of time, right? To outline, to test the things we have been discussing, to put them to use. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it to see what you thought, if you have any if you had any issues or if you had any comments, something that you would want to discuss. So
yes, and remember, don't outline the abstract. It's not this first part. The abstract, it's not for you to outline. It's only the introduction.
yes, I don't recommend outlining abstracts because abstracts are summaries of a text, resumos, right? So usually when we have writing, note-taking on texts, you can have an outline, which is divided in topics and has a hierarchy, or you have a summary, right? An abstract here. It's just one full text. And they have different functions. So if you outline the abstract, it's going to be a copy of the text with less detail. Priscilla asked if we have to submit it somehow. No, you don't have to. This is for you. So you can comment on it as much as you want. You can say if you like it, if you don't like it, if you agree, if you disagree. Especially interesting if you're doing research is to comment on how it relates to other texts. So since you don't have to submit it, feel free to test out the things we've discussed, okay? We will share a timer for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back at the end. Probably somewhere between this time, we will share the link for the certificate. When we come back, we'll share the link, absolutely, just so you can all feel reassured that there will be a certificate. You will have a link. But we will be here. I think we'll keep our cameras off, give you some time to work, and we'll come back and discuss. Are we clear? If you have any questions, we can come back and answer, okay? So you can just, we'll keep an eye on the chat for you. All right. Gabi. Okay, can you share the timer? Yes. Can you set it for 30 minutes? You have to click the minutes, the zeros in this case. Yes. And you have to type 30 in some way. If you want, perhaps I should do it. I should do it. My screen is here. I use this a lot to time my activities. Or to use Pomodoro. Don't know if it's something you're familiar with, but here we go. We'll be nice and quiet, but we will be here. Okay? So
Yes, if you
good
have any
luck.
questions, please submit them on the chat and we'll be here. Monica asked, how do we get the PDF? It's at a link on the chat here on YouTube. Maybe the lab can send it again.
Yes, you can have access to it, but it is only accessible if you're using. Oh no, Monica. If you're a university student or an USP student, you can use your USP email to get access, to get free access. If you're not a university student, you don't have to use this text. No pressure. You can pick a text from your field, or something that you have already read, or something that you have to read for a class, just to practice um, outlining. Okay, so we don't necessarily encourage you to pay for the text. You should have free access if you are a university student. Okay, the way to do it is to use USB VPN. I'm going to find a link here that will give you instructions. This way, even if you don't work for a long time on the outlining, you can still have access to a lot of free texts, or texts that wouldn't be free but are free to you. Okay? Yes. Just like how I mentioned, if you are a USP student, there is a button where you can log in with your institution, and USP is one of the options. So you should be fine.
Yes, the transmission is being recorded. You can watch it later if you want.
Em português está sendo gravado sim. Caso essa seja a dúvida. Hello. Just checking in to let you know that we are in the middle of an activity, right? We already had 15 minutes. We have 15 more. Um, Let me show you what the activity is in case you missed it. We have a text. If you're just finding this, you can choose any academic text and try to outline it, right? If you missed the first hour, you may not be clear on what an outline is, but you can try to do it fichamento style, and we can discuss the options. Okay? Or if you're a little bit lost, you can wait a little bit and we'll discuss anyways. Okay? But we will be back to full talking in about 13 minutes. 12, yes.
A lista ainda não passou. A gente vai passar a lista assim que a gente finalizar aqui o timer com a atividade. We are almost there. Estamos quase lá.
Hello.
We are back.
Yes. Were you able to do it? To try to start? This is
How was your experience doing this?
yes. As a discussion part, this is the moment in which you say your thoughts, your feelings. Not say right, because we're talking through chat, right? So go to the chat to give your opinions and get the certificate. Marcus said, I think the instructions you gave are very useful. Oh,
Oh, that's nice, Marco.
yes.
We are very glad that you feel that way.
Yes. Is there something that you have tried for the first time that you think worked, or perhaps that you thought was difficult? It was the beginning. Need to practice a little more. Absolutely, absolutely. Like I showed you this very old outline of mine, and I said that there are things that I would do today very differently, right? So over time, we learn what works for us. And if you're here, I'm assuming you still have to study, right? So I believe it's worth it to keep trying. Good reading is so valuable, right? Reading a text well and profoundly and engaging with it is vital for academic endeavors in general and also for life if you read well.
Giovanna says, I didn't write much. Did you use our text or did you choose another text? Tell us a little about your experience.
Jessica said it's very difficult to think about how to divide the entire text. Yes, just did the abstract and started the introduction for now. Okay, yes, it is. If I remember, it was there were some sections, so you can at least use the sections given by the author, right? So you have introduction, the concept of genre. And it does take some time to think. You can change your mind, but Marco said try to think about the paragraph division, and it was appropriate for this text. So This is good.
That's a
About
good tip.
about Giovanna's thing that she didn't write much. It's a long text. We did not expect you to finish. We didn't expect you to finish reading. It was just to get hopefully maybe the introduction in that time.
It was only the introduction. So you were only supposed to read the intro and do the outline according to the intro. That's all.
Yes. Gabi said, I'm very used to just selecting quotes from the text and write a few short comments. So it was a little difficult to try to only use my own words instead. Yes, it is very difficult. That's why Jose called it a nightmare earlier today, because learning how to paraphrase, right? Taking the time to paraphrase something well is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But I do believe that the work you do during the outline is time you save in the future if you do it well. So I think it's definitely a worthy challenge. Ademar said, I did a brief outline, but I need more time to improve it. Yes. Something people sometimes ask me is, do I read the text and then I go back and outline? It's not what I do. I think that would take even more time, right? So you have the one time to read, and then you have to go back and read again, and then outline. I think it takes more time.
Exactly. I think it's easier if you go paragraph by paragraph. I try to do this and get the message from each paragraph. So after you finish a paragraph, ask yourself, what is this paragraph telling me? What is this? What does this mean? And then you can start to do the outline from this paragraph. And how can I divide this into an outline?
Yes.
And then you go to the next paragraphs. So you don't have to read everything and then go back to the text and read it again just to do the outline. You can do both.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Before we go to Monica's comment, I don't know, I forgot. I drew a blank. But we can talk about Monica. Acho que estou mais acostumada a fazer resumos do que fichamentos. Ainda estou processando como fazer da forma que você mostrou. Yes. Resumos are in English summaries, okay? And they can be very helpful to practice your own writing, rewriting. But you have to be very succinct, right? It should be small. So the difference, I would say, between doing a summary or doing an outline is how much of the text you can write about. So the outline should be about an entire text. I know the activity we gave was very short, so you only did the beginning. But if you wanted to outline the entire text, then you would do from introduction till the conclusion. And on summaries, right, resumos, you maybe write one page about the text as a whole. So you maybe not mention examples. With outlines, you want to be thorough, right? Completo. You want to talk about as much of the text as you can.
Oh, good, Ademar. I did bullets using the headings and subheadings. Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly the essence of the outline. Giovanna asked if we should send what you wrote to us. You don't have to. If you want to share on the chat, I think it would be it would be a welcome. So we can we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Impossível fichamento topic. Let's show you what we were doing.
Welcome, Francie from Pantanal. She's from Pantanal. Welcome.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this.
Oh, FMS. Cool. You can share the screen again. Okay, so but we can check Bruno's first. Where is my example? Here it is. Bruno said, first I tried to get keywords. Yes, to think about the general idea. Yes, but you have to train. It's okay. If you're training English and training reading and training outlining, It takes some time, but be patient with yourself. You deserve it.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say is that sometimes I wrote comments in Portuguese and in English. You saw, if you were here. I think I would recommend perhaps thinking about what language you want to write in. So if you're going to write a paper in English, make your comments about the outline in English. If you're going to write in Portuguese, like a dissertation, you can do it in Portuguese. Beatriz said, I've always had the feeling that I should read the text twice before writing the outline. This workshop really helped me see things the other way. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Bia. Good to see you. Yeah, I think you can, if you want to go back and check the outline after you did it. But yeah, it's two different types of reading. I think it's worth experimenting. You read and you outline, and then maybe you go back and check, and then you read first, do a first reading, then you read again and outline, and pick which one works best.
Yeah, you don't have to do it the way we're telling you, in the sense that you need to do both at the same time. If you feel more comfortable reading the text first and then doing an outline, going back to the text and doing a second reading and doing an outline, okay. But as you go along, as you train, you'll see that it's possible to do both at the same time. With small activities like this one that we proposed, that you only had to read an introduction and do it, it's possible. But again, nothing comes without training. So it's
especially writing.
Yeah, especially writing.
I remembered what I wanted to comment. Marina was talking about how you can go paragraph by paragraph. You can also go, depending on the size of the section by section. So you read the introduction section, you outline. You read, let's say, a method section, you outline. In case, reading one paragraph isn't helping. So this was the example of an outline we showed you before, right, about this text, Out of the Woods. And what we want to bring attention to is this use of headings and subheadings, and then subheadings of the subheadings. So creating this hierarchy, this way it can be easier to understand the relationship between the parts. So I know that everything that is after 1 point something is about non-native writing instruction and research in these years, right? I know everything from section 1.1, focus on form, is I know everything that starts with 1.1 point something is on about this focus on form. One of the ways that you can teach writing, you can focus on form, or you can focus on content, or you can focus on the author. These are only a couple of ways. And we did a bit of an example of an outline. This was just this was just a copy of the text, in case we wanted to focus on it. But this is an example of an outline.
This is an outline that we did together from the introduction. So as you can see, the introduction had about 5 paragraphs, 5 or 6 paragraphs, something like that. So it's not a super short introduction. It's like and it's not too large either. But you can see that we did a rather short outline for that size of an introduction. So it's possible to do a short outline for a big introduction and still remember and retain information.
Yes, Marco said, I think that reading the text first and outlining it during a second reading gives a better idea about what's really important in the text and how the ideas fit in the general structure. Yes, but there is something that I want to highlight, is that even things that you may not consider important should be on your outline. You saw my example that there are things that are considered not necessarily not important, but common knowledge. And I think that can be different. Mostly because you may want your outline to function independently from the text. Of course, not every text should be that thoroughly outlined. I believe if you have a text that's semi-important, it's not super important, but you may want to use it a lot, then yes, you can maybe just be very brief on the parts that are not very relevant, and then expand the sections that you think are relevant. It's not a very common way of outlining. The very classical way of outlining is that you respect whatever hierarchy, whatever ideas the author writes. Okay, so whatever seems that they think is important, you're going to highlight, not necessarily what is important to you. So we had the introduction section, right? And it starts mentioning this recent increase in focusing on genre. Okay, so this is not necessarily like a full grammatically correct sentence. Okay, you can't just copy and paste it to a text. It's not going to make perfect sense, but it's the idea that's present. So recently, according to Highland, there has been this increase. I think he uses the verb increasing, and we chose the noun increase in genre-based pedagogies or genre theory. And we commented here, talvez somente em inglês, maybe only in the English-speaking world, because in my experience, people have been discussing genre for a very long time, right? So you don't have to accept the information that the author gives you blindly. You can situate it in the other things you have studied, right? Because I mentioned briefly, Bakhtin is at the center of genre studies in many genre theories, and it's not a recent thing. And there are many people in Brazil that study genre and have been doing that for many, many years. So I think that can be questioned, this recent increase. It may only be a local recent increase or an increase only in the English-speaking world.
And you can see that this comes easily for us because we are from the field. So we don't have to put a lot of information. That's the point. Because there are people here who are not from letras. So if you are from a different course, you can do the same thing with important text from your field. So these bases or these theories you already know, or you already have certain experiences, so you don't have to describe a lot of what you're putting there. Just enough so you can quickly understand what you're trying to talk about.
Yes. And then he mentions, right, Ken Highlands is a he. He mentions the recent increase in the use of genre in language learning and teaching, right? And he also says that this could be due to changing discourse in the area, which is just the briefest of introductions, contextualization. And then he starts talking about the advantages of genre-based pedagogies. He doesn't put it in this way. He doesn't say the advantages are if you read the text, but he did say, he does write, there has recently been an increase in focus on genre. So I did two different things, right? We did when we were writing here. Let me show you, because I'm sharing my full screen, aren't I? I can show you the text that I have here. He says, the last decade or so has seen increasing attention given to the notion of genre, right? So what we did was recent increase in focus on genre. This is largely a response to changing views of discourse and of learning to write. So this is what we put in the subheadings. And then he says, for teacher educators, genre-based pedagogies offer, and then he goes on. So we interpret this as him presenting advantages for these genre-based pedagogies or pedagogies. Sorry, it takes a while to load the slides when I bring them up. But having seen the way we did it, do you think you did it similarly? Did you do it very differently? I think it would be interesting to compare and contrast, right? If we were in person, I would probably ask you to share with the person next to you. Here we are. So this is what we did, right? So we interpreted that part of the text as the advantages of genre-based pedagogies for teacher educators. Here, I may also want to add a comment that this is very focused on people who want to educate teachers and not necessarily directly to the teachers themselves. So it informs the context of writing. And then it gives and then he gives a list of things that are that would be helpful in using genre to teach writing. So you can provide frameworks for students. Perhaps if you're not from the area, this is not clear to you, and then you can add a little question mark in a different color. You can add a little comment, something that will highlight an issue in a text for you that you can come back to. It considers to student needs. You can see that there is that it is fairly parallel, okay, because this is recent increase. This is a noun, increase, substantive, and advantages, also a noun, right? Here I'm using the word use as a noun, uso no ensino, right? Same thing. Discourse is the noun. Um discurso que está mudando. And then here we have provide a verb, consider a verb, create a verb. And then this one is not a verb. So we broke it here.
Yeah,
the parallelism. But it's
we
still
could,
clear.
We could think about a verb for that part. We could, like, self-developing professionally, maybe.
Yeah, or something general like promotes professional.
Yeah, promotes professional self-development. Promote professional self-development.
Yes.
See, we always have to train this to keep to the structure and to maintain an organized form and structure.
Yeah, this is helpful for future you, basically. If you're reading this right after you wrote it, it's probably going to be very clear. But we have to consider that our memories have limited space. And you're probably not going to remember the text that well in a month or two, or in a year when you're writing your qualification. So that's why it's good to be very, very thorough, and also strict in the language of your outline. That can be helpful. Let's say I want to write about this. I'm going to write about what Ken Highland would consider advantages. Then, if I paraphrase this well, if it's not very similar to the original, I can basically copy and paste this as a list in a text, and then add the proper citations. We good? If you have any other questions, you can send them.
Marco said he did it in a similar way. That's good. Great.
Yeah. I think it means we're on the right track, or at least we think alike.
Yeah.
This
and
was
now you have all the tools to get started.
Let me just show, Gabi. Sorry, I wanted to show the bibliography. Oh, my dog is telling us that we're running out of time. I'm sorry. I know. I'm finishing up. Maybe Marina can finish up while I stay quiet here.
Okay, so this is the bibliography that we used for the presentation. Okay, and if you have any questions or comments about what you did, please ask them on the chat, and we'll be happy to answer all of them. Thank you so much.
Perhaps you can email us if you have any particular issues, and Gabi will send it our way. Any comments as well, if you have something you want to criticize and you want to criticize in more privately. If you're interested in the subject of genre teaching and teaching writing, this text by Ken Highland, which is the one we showed, and this one by Anne Rames are both very good. Okay.
Thank you so much. Oh,
we got
nice shirts we're wearing. Okay, that's thanks. We hope you guys have now some tools to get started on outlines, and don't give up, because this is quite important for your academic lives.
Yes. Perhaps we'll see if maybe not, but one final tip is you can definitely research online writing labs, online writing laboratories, and they can give you a lot of resources on writing, on academic writing. Okay. If you follow us on social media, we also give out tips. Our website has a lot of sources. Okay. So
our
thank
Instagram
you so much.
as well, and keep up to date to our events, because we're always posting about our next upcoming events.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody who is giving thanks. Okay, and hope to see you around.